Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Okay, so today I am super excited because I have one of the legitimately best and most genuine people on the internet. We have the amazing Neil Patel, who is joining us on the podcast today. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm super excited about this because right at the beginning of my journey, I found you when I was coming out of corporate. And for me, when I was coming out of my corporate job, I looked for men in the online space because if I was honest, a lot of the women kind of terrified me. Everyone was very pink and very fluffy, and I just wasn't. And so I wanted people who could give me strategies that were solid, that I could see that worked. And when I typed in, who knows how to do marketing, which obviously coming out of corporate, that is what you type in, I found you. And you had founded some incredible businesses. You had this amazing blog that I quickly became addicted to. And I became this really annoying person who would quote people, well, Neil says, like you were my best friend. So that's how I got to know you. But what's the real day-to-day? What is it that you formally do?
I formally just answer emails, do phone calls, interviews like this. That really is the majority of my day, to be quite honest.
Now that's going to sound like the absolute dream to the majority of my audience because they're like, that's exactly what I want to do all day. So you obviously specialize in the world of online marketing and you've been in this game for a while, right?
I have, I think around 16 years or so. It's been a long time.
And that's huge because I think a lot of people, when we start out and we start thinking about how we're going to build our online businesses and things, people seem to think it's going to be an overnight success.
Yeah, it just does not happen, right? In which it takes years to see results. I remember when I was starting off and I started building a brand, eventually people were like, oh, cool, I see your content everywhere. Like, good job. Like, you've done so amazing well in a short period of time. And in my head, I'm like, I wish it was a short period of time, but it took forever. And on top of that, I don't think I've done well enough or that well, to be quite frank.
So that's really interesting. And this is going to take me on a totally different tangent than I probably would have gone on. But let's talk about that. Not feeling like you've done as well as you could have done, if you don't mind, because I think for me, I know that when I set out with my business, one of the things that I really thought was, oh, when I get to 6 figures, everything will be amazing. And then when I got there, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool, but maybe I could have done it quicker. And maybe if I try and like do another massive goal in a shorter space of time, maybe I'll feel like I've done enough then. Do you think that's something that's common with entrepreneurs?
I think so. And then when you hit 6 figures, you realize you got to pay something called taxes. So then the money is actually not 6 figures.
No. So I think that's a really interesting one. What do you think you would do differently next time?
If I had to do something, I don't think there'd be a next time for me, but it depends on what you mean by what are you going to do? What would you do next time, right? Like in what context?
So if you were starting out again and you were thinking about, okay, what level would I need to get to so that I can, when I hit that goal, feel like I achieved what I wanted to achieve? What would you do differently? Would it be a case of raising the goal? Would it be a case of decreasing the time period? Or would it be something totally different?
It would be something totally different. If I was starting all over again, I wouldn't even do any of this. I would have just gone and got a 9-to-5 job at a company.
Okay, that's really interesting. Would you mind, like, if I ask why that would be your choice next time, or if you were to start over?
Yeah, it's more consistent. Pay is good. Life is, it's not easy, but it's less ups and downs being an entrepreneur. Either way, I enjoy it. I'm just saying if I was looking for the easier approach, because I started off as an entrepreneur with the only goal of to try to make money, which is the wrong concept or the wrong mindset to have when you're trying to start a company or do anything. But in general, if I was starting over again, I probably would work 9 to 5. Now, that doesn't mean I regret being entrepreneur or I don't like what I'm doing. I do love it. And I don't see myself as a 9 to 5er. But if I was starting all over again and if my goal was just to make money, it would have been easier just working 9 to 5.
I think that's a really interesting concept because sometimes I think that we assume entrepreneurship will be easier because we can be more flexible around things like time. And we assume that because we're not necessarily attached to a desk in a physical office, that actually our lives will be a lot easier. But like you're saying, there are an awful lot of roller coasters that come into it. And I think that personal responsibility is a huge factor in that, personal responsibility in terms of showing up for yourself, but also, like you mentioned there, around that idea of really wanting to help other people and putting that as your primary responsibility to show up and serve them consistently.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more so, you got to figure out what you love and just go for that. It could be entrepreneurship. It could be working for someone else 9 to 5. You just got to figure out you, and there's no right or wrong answer, but you'll end up learning over time what works for you.
And do you think that, from your perspective in the industry, because I know that in the 4 years I've been online, I've seen an awful lot of people come and go. Do you think that there are certain characteristics or qualities that have made you be the person that has stuck around,
Yeah, not really. I can tell you there is, but I'd just be blatantly lying, but not really. Like, look, at the end of the day, you really just got to figure out what works for you. And there really is no right answer. At least I don't think there is.
So it's a case of figure it out and dial in on what's working for you and get rid of what isn't.
Yeah, but when you're doing this, you have to keep in mind, do you really love what you're doing? Because you can dial in, you can fine tune, you can get rid of the stuff that's not working, double down on the stuff that is. But if you don't love what you're doing, you're not going to put in the time and energy that you need to succeed. Everyone believes that, being an entrepreneur, you control your own destiny. You don't. Your customers control your destiny. You have multiple bosses. Every one of your customers is your boss. Your customer is always right, even when they're wrong, in which if you don't like what they say, it doesn't matter. They're your customer. Sure, you can fire one or two, but you're going to have less income. You just got to deal with all this other stuff. Now, I don't want to tell people, hey, you shouldn't do entrepreneurship or learn marketing or whatever you want to do. It's just the grass is always greener on the other side. There's the pros and cons of both. Just like working 9 to 5, everyone's like, oh, that's so much easier than being an entrepreneur. I've seen both ends, and they have their ups and downs as well. And working 9 to 5 can be just as stressful. And for some people, I've seen it being more stressful as well.
So this bit about loving what you do you mean by that, that you've got to love the outcome or the transformation or the result that you provide to others, or the general day-to-day work that you are actually doing?
The day-to-day work, you'll get burned out and you won't want to take vacations if you don't truly enjoy what you're doing.
Okay, I love that. So I'm now picturing you sitting there obsessing over new marketing trends that we haven't even heard of yet.
I don't know if I'm that bad.
Don't disillusion me, Neil.
It is sad in which, and it's not really sad, but like people will do stuff in their day-to-day and they dream about things. I'll be taking a shower and I'll be thinking about marketing. I'll be sleeping in bed and I'll be thinking about marketing. I'll be watching TV and I think about marketing. Like, it just doesn't stop. It's not that I don't want it to stop. It doesn't. Like, I was at dinner yesterday, and when I was at dinner, some guy was talking to me about real estate, and in my head, I was thinking about, how he can do a better job marketing it. This wasn't to pitch him on anything. He didn't, he wasn't my ideal customer, and his company wasn't big enough, but it was more so that's the way my brain is wired, sadly.
But I think in some ways, that's a really good way to be wired. I'm a similar kind to you. I obsess about sales because I see better ways or ways to improve it everywhere. And for me, that's really interesting. And I know for my friends, it's really not. They can't bear it when I pull out, at a restaurant, hey, did you know if they did this, they could increase their ROI by X amount? They're not bothered. But actually, in terms of creating content, I think that's a really helpful skill.
Yep, exactly. I do think it is a helpful skill. But even like you're saying, you're addicted to sales and you're constantly thinking about it, even though it may not be appealing to your friends. There is a certain point where you do want to turn it off, and you want to have a healthy balance in life. What is that healthy balance? Who knows? My problem is I can't have a healthy balance. I just keep focusing on work. It's how my brain works and I can't shut it off. And it's, well, funny enough, it does make me happy just focusing on work.
I think you're right, and I think a lot of people in my audience, for example, are parents and things like that. So it's probably not going to be helpful to all day try and talk about your passion to your kids, for example. But I think if there was an on-off switch that you could flick so that maybe on date night you weren't thinking about it, you'd go with it. But for the happy medium of the rest of the time, being able to, actually make yourself happy thinking about something you're interested in. I don't know. I don't know whether that's something I could live without. Maybe I'm just obsessive.
And the obsessive quality helps make quite a bit of solid entrepreneurs. So it's a quality that a lot of people have.
Yeah. I mean, I think
It's a quality that a lot of good entrepreneurs have. I wouldn't say it's a quality everyone has, but it's a quality that a lot of good entrepreneurs have.
we're in good company. So what would you say that, apart from this quality of just really loving what you do, what would you say took you to being an entrepreneur who A, stuck around, but B, has a phenomenal sales track record?
Yeah, I had no choice. I started when I was so young, I couldn't find a job. So I did entrepreneurship, not because I was like, yay, let's be entrepreneur. I started entrepreneurship because I was like, I can't find a good job. I'm too young and I don't have a college degree and I'm in high school. So might as well just keep pushing forward on my own thing.
So it's about, for you, it's about persistence and resilience.
Correct.
I like that. I've read your blog, but I know that there are people here who won't have perhaps consumed your content in the same way. But do you find that failure is something that you've experienced and learned to like, or at least respect? Or do you think failure is something that you kind of at the beginning avoided at all costs?
Well, I couldn't really avoid it because we all fail somewhere or another. You can be Elon Musk and you can still fail in someone's viewpoint, at least. And he has, but overall he's done well. Even Mark Zuckerberg has failed, and so has Bill Gates. You're never batting 100%. If you are, you're not taking enough risk. As an entrepreneur, as you do stuff, you will naturally fail. Not everything is going to be a home run or going to work out in your favor. Instead, whether you like the failure or not, it's going to happen. The best thing you can do is learn from it and try to avoid making the same mistakes over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that's something you learned early on? Because I know that as a young person, for me, I didn't always learn from my mistakes, and it did take me a while.
Yeah, I had the same problem. I didn't always learn from my mistakes. I kept making the same ones over and over again. I'm like, man, third time in a row, this sucks. And eventually you're like, okay, I shouldn't make this again. And when you stick with that mind frame, you're much better off because in the long run, you'll be able to generate consistent growth due to the fact that you're eventually learning what you should not do, which will lead you down a path of what you should do.
I really like that. So that kind of makes me think, what is your favorite thing then to do? Because now you've learned from your mistakes. I'm not going to say all of your mistakes because we all have infinite amounts of mistakes in us, but what currently is your favorite thing to do, having had this kind of lifetime of experience now?
My favorite thing, you're saying, so what's my favorite thing to do based on other mistakes? From an aspect of entrepreneurship, marketing, just day to day, like?
From the aspect of building your business.
So I'm terrible at operations. I'm terrible at growing businesses, believe it or not. Most people think because I'm a marketer, I've been doing this for 17 years now, I think, somewhere around there, 16, 17 years, that, hey, I know everything and this is great and everything is going to work out. And I love it and I'm good at it. And that's not the case. I'm only really good at one thing, which is driving demand. In other words, visitors in all simplicity. Can I get qualified people to a website, which I'm great at? Mm-hmm. What I'm terrible at is converting those visitors into customers because I don't like doing sales. I've done really well in sales in the past. I'm just not patient. I can do self-service really well, although typically self-service companies don't grow as fast. I'm terrible at managing, building teams, hiring. I just stick with what I'm good at, which is just demand generation. And I really don't have to do anything else. Even the team tells me, they're like, yeah, you just stick with driving traffic and demand. We'll take care of everything else.
I think that's a great quality in a team. So you've obviously hired really good people.
Yeah, and I don't run any of my companies. So I'm not the CEO of any of them.
But I think that's interesting because, Michael Gerber talks about that in the E-Myth about where do you sit across the three spaces? Are you a technician? Are you the visionary? Are you the manager? And
I don't know if I'm either or any of the three.
But you're good at driving traffic.
What were the three? Technician?
Yeah, technician. So the technician is the person who has the skill. They do the thing in essence. The manager is the person who perhaps doesn't have the understanding of doing the thing, but can manage other people who do. And then you've got the entrepreneur who is the visionary, who is, I always imagine Ray Kroc, who's the guy that obviously made McDonald's what it is today, who has the vision for let's make this thing huge. And this is how we're going to take over world domination, but doesn't necessarily have the strict finite plan for doing it.
Yeah, so I'm probably either the technician or potentially the visionary, although I don't necessarily always have the best vision. I'm just really aggressive, in which I'm like, I can do whatever. I'm going to crush everyone. Although that sounds bad. And
no.
And then I try to come up with plans and ideas, and I'm really quick at executing. Mm-hmm. So I just figure it out whether I have the skill set or not. I'm able to figure out how to execute and just get stuff up and get it off to the races. But there's a point where I quit internally, in which once it becomes like too many people that I got to manage or whatever, I just give up on it. Not in which I'm not willing to put in time, in which I just give up, in which I'm not willing to deal with the day-to-day bullshit. I'm also far enough in my career where I don't have to deal with it. And what I mean by that is I'll just hire someone and be like, this is your problem. Like, I'm not dealing with customer success or support or sales or whatever. I'm like, you go figure out all the people issues.
But that's also a really good place to be. And actually, it's one of the hardest things, I think, that gets people stuck. When you're making, let's say, 50K a year, you don't have the ability to scale in terms of people. And so actually managing all that yourself is really hard. But when you get to the point where you want to start outsourcing and you're hiring people who can manage elements like customer service or marketing or sales or whatever that looks like, not everybody is a born people manager either. So it is a really interesting point to raise.
I'm very unique. The other day, the team brought me into a meeting, and like I get frustrated with people not knowing answers really quickly. And I'm like, man, I could have been watching Netflix. Like literally, that was going through my head.
What would you have been watching, though, is the big question.
So I just finished Jack Ryan on Amazon, technically, so not Netflix. I loved it, but that was what I was watching. So in theory, it wasn't Netflix, but I consider it all Netflix because it's all streaming, which is great for Netflix, terrible for everyone else from a brand perspective. That was around 10 a.m. during the morning, right? So I was just like, I shouldn't have been doing that, but that's what I was thinking in my head. I also work like 60, 70-hour weeks, and I work during the most randomest times. So.
Are you like a night worker or a early bird?
Early bird and night. Those are when I do the best. So during the day, like 10 a.m., 11, 12, 1, anytime between around 9 and 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm getting bogged down by so many people. I barely get anything done, but early mornings and nighttime, I get a lot done.
It's funny, isn't it? We all have our clocks and they work better. I mean, I'm personally an early bird. I like to get up, get all my sales activities done, and then I'm like, everything else, Team Jess, they make it happen. I'm like, yay, go you guys. And then, for me, it's that early morning space where perhaps other people aren't awake. And I guess, with salespeople, we were always taught, get up early, because the calls that you make early are the ones that are valuable.
Totally. And I'm very similar. And then during the day, what I love doing is I love bugging people on the team. So even though I don't manage, I'd be like, what's all your numbers? Where are you at? How are sales going? Or whatever it may be. And I start looking at things. I'm like, okay, if I know they're not going to hit numbers, I start thinking about ways I can fine tune whatever they're doing or make it more efficient to hit the numbers. But it just
I love that. So you're metrics driven.
Very metrics driven. Everything is a funnel to me. And I'm looking at numbers and fall off. Like I was doing with the sales team the other day, and I'm like, how many leads, how many phone calls are you getting? And I'm like, this ratio sucks. So I'm like, okay, let's use schedule once to automatically schedule calls. So when the lead comes in, they can schedule it if they meet certain requirements. Then the sales team was like, we get too many irrelevant calls. I was like, oh, okay. Start looking at the regions where we're closing deals, the regions we're not, and what has the highest call rates. And I start blocking them off from becoming a lead that could actually schedule a call. And then sales reps will tell me, oh, a lot of people don't show up. So then I start integrating with Twilio, and I'll start sending people text reminders, and I'll test the copy to figure out how to get the most people on there. And then I'll test things like, oh, you let people book out a call a week in advance. People's schedules could change a week later. So then I'll do an A/B test, and I'll start only making it where people can book 1 day out or 2 days out to see if that improves the show up rate. But I'm very metrics driven, and it just doesn't stop. I just keep going and going and going. And once it's fine tuned, I figure out, all right, let's try something crazily different to see if that'll beat this current version that's working for the sales team.
See, I really like that because I'm somebody who consistently, and the poddies, or AKA our listeners, will know this. I bang on about the importance of metrics all the time, because if you don't know the data, you can't change it. And yet a lot of people will email me and say, but I don't want to look at the data because it might not be what I'm saying. But what you're saying here is, again, it's that if you have a clear picture, you can do something about it, you can influence it, you can make it more positive regardless of where you're starting.
Exactly. And that's why I love the data. You're not going to know how to improve unless you're looking at the numbers.
I really like that.
And you won't know where to focus on first too.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I think that's huge. And that's massive for people listening today. I guess my final question to you is, if you could put yourself in the shoes of my audience, what would be the one thing that you would focus on? And I don't want to say, forever. I would say for the next 90 days, if you were looking to grow your traffic, what would be the one thing that you just focus on for 90 days? Would it be just that consistent metric tracking? Would it be looking at data? What
kind of businesses do most of the people listen in and have?
So most of the audience here are coaches, consultants, authors, or speakers.
So the one thing I would do is go on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, I kid you not, and just go create video material helping people out within your space. So if you're a coach that teaches people how to create a coaching business, go create videos that will help people. If you're a coach that teaches people how to do real estate sales better, go create videos teaching people some of these tactics. What you'll find is, because these social networks are they want TV, video content. They want to compete with television. They want the eyeballs. They're willing to promote it and give it the exposure more than it normally would receive. So if you do that, forget visitors. You'll get a ton of views. The people who watch this stuff, they'll engage with you. Engage with them on the social platforms. Comment, respond, direct message them, whatever it may be. And what you'll find is you'll convert quite a few of those people into quote unquote consulting clients or coaching clients, whatever you're selling.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on today. Honestly, it's been an absolute dream. Where can people find you?
neilpatel.com.
Easy. Thank you so much. It's been a blast. If you guys have enjoyed this, remember we have put together the workbook just for you, so you can go and check out what my key takeaway was from this particular episode. Have fun. If you've been enjoying the 6-Figure Success series, then I hope that you will take this opportunity to grab your totally free, actionable workbook where you can record your key takeaways, your key action points, and hear my key learns from this series as well. It's jam-packed full of all of the interviewees who've participated and taken part in the series, as well as a few bonus key extras from me. You can go and download it right now using the link in the show notes. I'll see you inside the workbook.